Wow. It's such a Kiddush Hashem, you know. You come to Florida, you know. I want you to know that Mati has a pickleball game now, but he came here instead. It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. Any friend of Mati's and Irwin's and Bob's, a friend of mine, I'll tell you that much. First of all, B'shus Rav Ephraim Goldberg. It's amazing what he accomplishes here. It's really, Hashem should give him kaya to continue. So many things going on over here. There's two subjects I like to talk about. I mean, I talk about a lot of things, but there's two subjects, Shalom Bayis and davening. And the reason why I like to talk about the two of them is because they're things that we use all the time. We have a problem in general with retention of our learning. We go to a shir, so how was the shir? Oh, it was great. What did he say? I don't remember, but I know it was great. You know? So, but when you talk about Shalom Bayis, you can use it. And when you talk about tefillah, you review it 3 times a day. So that's a great thing to talk about. So since there's no women over here, and you know, people think that they're already in a retiree's kollel, there's nothing you could tell me about Shalom Bayis that I don't already know. So I decided to talk about tefillah. Unless you would rather hear about Shalom Bayis. It's scary, but there are many people that are already cresting 80 and 70, and they still don't know the meaning of all the words in davening. And even if they do, they don't know how to fuse the sentences together. What does one thing have to do with another? They say it and they say it in Haidu. There's so many different things in Haidu and Volotzion. And if that would be the only problem, it wouldn't be so bad. But there are plenty of people that they open the siddur and they're not even focused on talking to Hashem. You know, I tell a story that I once, my daughter Dvorah, who's a really erlicha girl, she was benching, and I said, Dvorah, smile. So she went, no. I said, Dvorah, smile again. So afterwards she came over to me, Tati, I didn't want to be disrespectful, I was benching. So I said, no. I said, you're saying thank you to Hashem, so smile to him. Duh. There are people that bench to the bencher, they daven to the siddur, and they say every word, but they're not focused like we have a lot of times on the bima. Dalifnei miyata oimed. Know before whom you're standing. It's a training to. And if you look in the Rambam in Meir Nevuchim, the Rambam says in Meir Nevuchim that, and he says it. It's like he says. Tefillah without talking to Hashem is not tefillah. That means you say that you did davening, but you didn't do davening. That's not tefillah. By the way, you know what davening stands for? Davening, the Bnei Yissaschar, so what kind of a word is davening? So the Bnei Yissaschar says davening is di avinan, that of our fathers, of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And I can assure you that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were talking to the Rabbeinu Shalom. Most of you have heard the Chavis Havavos. Chavis Havavos says that prayer without Kavana is like a peel without the fruit and a body without the soul. Now, a body without the soul, you know what a body without the soul is? Dead, deader, and deadest. That's a body without the soul. You have to know that on certain kehillas, you could call them Anshei Chevra Kedisha. I know nobody wants that name, but Kahal, Kedusha, Anshe Chevra Kadisha, because everybody is a body without a soul. There's my Rebbetzin now, Rebbetzin Shashi, is a direct descendant of the Shalah Kaddish. And the Danziger family, the direct descendants of the Shalah. The Shalah, he gets very poetic, really, really poetic. He says there's two types of people. There's two categories of people. He says there are people that when they bless, they're not blessing anybody. And when they pray, they're not praying to anybody. And then there's another type of person that when they bless Hashem. And when they pray to Hashem. Now listen to the poetry. He says the second group that prays to Hashem and blesses Hashem is so few that a child can count them. He says the first group is so many, more than the locusts in the field. And that's talking about a time with locusts all over the place. And he says, may it be the will of Hashem that I should never be from that group. That's what he says. There's an Avudraham. It's interesting Avudraham. The Avudraham says that we know, it says, "Avdoi b'chol levavechem." You should work with all your heart. Says the Avudraham. The Gemara says, "Ezo avoida shehi b'leiv." Now this is a Gemara. If it wouldn't be for this Gemara, I would have translated avoida shehi b'leiv, the work of the heart. This is what I would say. Work of the heart is to work on being kind, to work on being caring, to work on being generous, and that's work. By nature we're not kind. By nature we're selfish and self-centered. So I would have said that's what it meant, but that's not what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, "Ezel avodah she believe hevayomer zu tefillah," that the work of the heart is to know how to pray. So Avudraham says, what exactly is the work of the heart? What is the work? So he says that the work of the heart is to free the mind from distractions when you daven. So like Mati davens mincha, and he's thinking of a particular down-the-line shot in pickleball. It's a big problem. Big problem. And he's thinking, if he would have moved the racket a little bit more like that and given a flick, and then he goes slach lanu, flick the other way. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. Rav Schwab says that we know that tefillas are connected karbanis, and every detail of the tefillah is connected carbon. For example, we daven standing because the avodah has to be done standing. Right? We have a mokum kavua because the avodah, let's say kachim, have to be in the north. It has to be in a specific place. Even when it says al kol karboncha takriv melech. Now you never see a salt shaker here, do you? You don't have it over here. No salt shakers. So where's the salt? The answer is it's in the tears. Tears have salt. And the melech of tefillah is the tears. Says Rav Schwab, what do you have to do with the carbon? You have to flay it. That's called hefshit. He says flaying the mind of our distractions. What are you going to have tonight? A barbecue? Maybe fish? Maybe a pasta? Right? To free your mind of the distractions, says the Avudraham, that's avodah. It reminds me, I should ask you, when is this shir till? I want to know how much time I have.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock?
5
p.m.? Okay, yeah.
Otherwise you interfere with mine.
Huh? No, I mean, we could do 5 a.m. too. I'll just talk about Shalom Bayis also. But the mice is, it reminds me of a great story with Rabbi Wein. When Rabbi Wein built the shul in Muncie, that's a long time ago already. When he built the shul in Muncie, they asked him what he wants to be involved in. And like a true Rav, the same way I would answer, he answered everything, But then they asked him, particularly what he wants to be involved in. When I built my new shul in Staten Island, that's already now 34 years ago, when I built my new shul, they asked me the same question, and I gave an interesting answer. I said the lights. Lights are very important in a shul. The brighter it is, the better. The brighter it is, there's no romantic aura in a shul. You don't want people dozing off. You want people to see light makes people feel, raises a people's mood. So I told my congregants I wanted them to go to the post office and the library and see the lights that they use in a post office and a library. In those days in the post office, they were still reading letters, they were still looking, Now nobody looks at anything. It's all done by automation, But, so they came back with mercury vapor lights and LED lights and all kinds of different lights. It's very important. But Rabbi Wein gave another answer, very interesting answer. He said he wants to be involved in the seats. So he said, the seats? He says he wants to make sure they're not too comfortable. Because when you come to shul, you come to work. It's a very interesting chiddush. People could be going to shul for many years and think that, they're coming to shul to sit back and relax. They listen to the laning, and as they listen to the laning, it's almost like you ever go to the supermarket to what do they have over there? Pathmark, ShopRite? I know them. Oh, Dixie, whatever it is. Win Dixie, and they're playing music, and you feel like you're in the dentist. Because they play the same music in the dentist. Right? So people go to shul, and they hear, they don't have no clue what's going on. They're in a semi, quasi, soporific state, and it's a shame. People come to shul, they're supposed to work. The Chavetz Chaim says a great thing. He says Chaim Yankel was 93 years old. He passed away. He went to Shemayim. And he gets to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Now Chaim Yankel was a good guy. He was nice to his wife. He came to a shir. He gave charity. So they greeted him with a smile. Chaim Yankel said, Rebbeinu Shalom, I've been waiting for this meeting. I have a big kasha to ask you. Rebbeinu Shalom, Parnassa was never easy for me. I went from one job to another job. I had bosses that didn't treat me right. It was hard hours. Mamish, I had such a hard time with Parnassa. Rebbeinu Shalom, I'm basically a good guy. Why do you give me such a hard time? So he says, in life, I also gave you work. And I have to tell you, Chaim Yankel, you didn't serve me well. When you were davening, you were a space cadet. Yeah, you know what a space cadet is? You spaced out all the time. You daydreamed, you davened, and you were thinking about the cholent, and you were thinking about what you're going to do on the weekend, and you were thinking about the sleep after the cholent. you didn't do a good job working for me. And that's why the work didn't go. The Chofetz Chaim says this is a different way of looking at the meaning of davening for parnasa. Most people assume that that means to have Kavana in Baruch Aleinu. You know, you have Kavana in Baruch Aleinu to daven for parnasa. The Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky says a Rav could daven in Atachaynin also for parnasa, you know, because that's part of his parnasa. But the Chofetz Chaim says, no, davening for parnasa is that you're davening the way you work for Hashem. That affects your parnasa. That's because the way we work, Hashem will help us in our work. You know, what do you do when you want to check if you have a minion? So what do over here? They don't count. Right? So what do we say a pasuk, right? You know what the Sfardim do? Baruch ata Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam ha'moitzi lechem min haaretz. It's 10 words. You know why they do that? Because they come to daven for the bread. That's why they do it. That's a Baruch ata Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam ha'moitzi lechem min haaretz. That's what you do when you come to shul. There's a Menorah Hamar. The Menorah Hamar. These are all like great people. These are great. The Venerable Menorah Hamar says that when we work, and I'm talking to myself. It's another reason why I like to talk about tefillah, because then probably mincha is going to be better today for me, right? So we all have this. You know, this is not a modern problem. This is a Gemara in Brachas. Krum zolus libnei Adam. The Gemara darshans dvarim she'oimdim beruma yishalaylam ubnei Adam mizalzalim b'hem. That was written 1,000 years ago. More. Things that go to the top of the world. What goes to the top of the world? You know, I can never get upset in such an oilam if a phone goes off, because I know somebody's wife might be home having a baby. I can never be upset. Never be upset. Never be upset. That's one thing. I'm a Rav in Fairways. You know, it's a retirement community. And I said, listen, Rabbi, he said, come on. How many of you have to run to take your wife to the hospital? You know, unfortunately, it's for other reasons. That's how I don't get myself upset. You know, people have emergencies. People fall. People layalenu. But if you don't, it's good to, you know, because it disturbs everybody, especially by davening. But the Gemara says that dvam sha'oimdim berumei shalaylam, that's tefillah that goes lamala, ubnei adam mizalzim b'hem, and people neglect them. So they were neglecting tefillah already 1,000 years ago. It's not easy to daven. You're davening to somebody that you don't see. You're davening to somebody that doesn't answer you. It's not normal. Not normal. Okay, Mati says sometimes his best friends are that way. But okay, but I'm saying it's not normal. You talk to somebody, they answer you. You see them, right? So there's a discipline, and there's no question. There's a discipline in davening. That's why we have shiurim about them, to get that discipline. But the opportunity, I can't help mention from this week's parsha. This week's parsha is about the Egel Azav. So it says, there's a medrash, we know it says that Svivav, Nish'ara Ma'od, the inner circle of Hashem is punished very, very, very severely. It says in the medrash that for Aaron's involvement in the Egel Azav, although he was doing it to stall until Moshe Rabbeinu came back, it was all Hashem Shemaim. But for his involvement in the Egel, it says that he was supposed to lose all 4 of his children, Elazar and Isamar also. But he davened, and tefillah oisa machza, so only 2 died. The Medrash continues that we are offered that if we daven with Kavana the 3 tefillahs of the day, then we cut what's supposed to happen to us into an 1/8. Because the first tefillah cuts it into half, mincha cuts it into 1/4, and mariv cuts it into an 1/8. That's what it says in the Medrash. So tefillah is very powerful. You know, there's a global problem. I don't know if you heard about it in Florida. I don't know. Maybe in Florida it's different. But there's a global problem about talking in shul. Did you ever hear of that? You know, it's like I spoke this Motzei Shabbos in Hollywood, Florida. I gave a Shalom Bayis here. So I said my credentials in speaking in Shalom Bayis is that 38 years that I was a Rav in Florida, in Staten Island, I didn't have a divorce in my shul. I'm very proud of that. And then I said, you know why? Because I told them that if they get divorced, I'll kill them. And I said, I did have Levias in 38 years, you know. So when Mati was a Gabbai, he said, if you talk, I kill you, you know. But that's not the way to do it. Not the way to do it. The real trick, most people think that if you don't want people to talk in shul, you have to tell them what a crime it is. That it says in Shulchan Aruch that Gadol Avoinoi Minasai, sin is too heavy to bear, and that's borrowed from Cain who killed Hevel, so it's like murder. And it's such a terrible thing because the shul is a mikdash, and it's like talking about in the mikdash. And why did Hashem punish Sodom v'Amorah more than anything else? Because Sodom v'Amorah was in Eretz Yisrael, so to behave that way in Eretz Yisrael, the Ramban says it's much worse. That's why it was nuked. So to talk that way in a shul, in a mikdash ma'at, it's such a terrible sin. But it doesn't work. The real way to convince people not to talk in shul. What's the meaning of chait? Chait means to miss. The slingshot experts of David HaMelech, loy chata, never missed. The worst thing about a chait is the missed opportunity. You're talking about the Mets and the Yankees, unless somebody talks about the Marlins. I didn't think so. But I mean, you're talking about what good investment there is. You're talking about the best kind of walker, whatever it is you're talking about. But you realize that you could be davening to Hashem. And kikel shemet tfilas kol pa'am ko Yisrael b'rachmim. Ve'ein tfilah chayzeres reikam. Are you missing out on that? Are you crazy? So I want to share with you something. You know, one of the powerful consequences of tefillah is a pasuk. And obviously, when you hear the language of the pasuk, you know it's from the most important psukim in the entire Torah. The pasuk says, "Ma Hashem alikecha shoyel me'imach kiyem liyira." What does Hashem ask but that you should fear Him or be aware of Him? Rav Miller spent his long life educating everyone. Now Rav Miller is having such a resurgence. His pamphlets are all over the place. In every shul that you go, even here in Boca. Right? You have Rav Miller's pamphlets here. No, they didn't get it. No, of course. It's everywhere. They even have it in Deerfield. It gets through the gated community even. And so Rav Miller spent his life telling people that Yira means to see, to be aware of Hashem. And that's the accomplishment of life. That we don't decide what we're going to do just like this. What am I in the mood of? By instinct, we think, what does Hashem want me to do? That's being a Yoreh Shemayim. Letting our decision-making process be determined, does Hashem want me to do this or not? That's Yoreh Shemayim. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, Mo Hashem Elokecha shoyom me'imach ki im liyira. Now again, there are certain things that our decision-making process are naturally built from. What our parents expected from us. What's the norm in our community? What brings us people's accolades? How does one become a Yoreh Shemayim? How does that happen? So the Gemara says, Al tikrei ma elameya. Don't read it what? Read it 100. That a person should make 100 blessings every day. And that will make a person a Yoreh Shemayim. Rav Miller says a mashal. See, this is the kind of crowd, everybody's going to know him. There are some crowds I talk to, they don't know what I'm talking about. But everybody over here is familiar with Bozo the clown. The big red nose, right? Everybody knows Bozo the clown. So Rav Miller said, imagine if he told you to say Bozo 100 times today. Pass the Bozo, you look like Bozo. Could I have some Bozo? You say it 100 times, by the end of the night, you're going to be dreaming of Bozo. That's the way it is. He says that's the idea of making a good 100 brachas. If you say Baruch Atah Hashem Shakol Niyeh B'Dvar, Baruch Atah Hashem Bari Min Emezayis, Baruch Atah Hashem Shli Yasani Goy, Baruch Atah Hashem Roifei Kol Basa Mafli Lasais, Baruch Atah Hashem Amavarich Hasamu Yisrael B'Shalom, Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Hashem. If you do that 100 times, by the end of the day, you're thinking of Hashem. And you have to know that that's everything. Hein yiras Hashem hi chachma. Reish is chachma yiras Hashem. Shlomo Melech says, Soif davar hakol nishmes elikim yirah ki zeh kol ha'adam. That's everything. Everything is, and we have an entire body of mitzvahs just dedicated. 1/3 of the category of mitzvahs in the Torah is dedicated to this ambition. They're known as edus. There's the chukim, basa b'chalav, shatnez, egla rufa, the things we have no clue. We only do it because they're the gzeres hamelech, they're the decree of the king. Then there's mishpatim. There's mishpatim. You can't play music in the co-op after 9 o'clock. You know, all those kind of things. You know, all kinds of laws. You got to bring in your garbage before 72. You know, whatever it is. All the laws of the HOAs and those are mishpatim. Then there's edus. Edus are called. We have a fancy name for them. It's called testimonials. Edus is the same letters as deus. Edus and deus are the same letters. Because edus gives us knowledge. The purpose of the edus is to give us knowledge of Hashem. So what's a simple example of edus? A mezuzah. Mezuzah is under the category of edus. The Rambam says, you look at the mezuzah, and you remember that Hashem is in the room. That's a simple drill. Unfortunately, most people don't do it. But Hashem gave, I remember I was once Chaim Wallerstein made this statement of mine go viral. He said it, he quoted me at an Aguda convention. But I remember saying it at one of the Wallerstein conventions. We were in a big, I think it was in that, that hotel in Connecticut that has the atrium outside. Is that whatever it's called, the Armin, I think it's called now. But anyway, no, it's not, because that's a Jewish hotel. It was a big Hilton. And I said, so what was missing this Shabbos? So people were thinking, was there salt shakers on the table? Did they have chrein? Were there comfortable pillows in the bathrooms? And I said, the whole Shabbos we didn't see one mezuzah. And nobody missed it. If you could go a whole Shabbos without missing the mezuzah, then that means that mezuzah doesn't really mean much to you. Which is okay, because you're just normal. Most people don't have a relationship. I'm not in any way, shape, or form a Lubavitcher. I'll tell you a secret, that when I became a Rav, I was 26. And I looked, I had a baby face, and I didn't even have a beard yet. And I looked like a bar mitzvah boy. So I asked Reb Moshe if I should wear a kapata. And he said yes. So then I asked him, should I wear a Hamburg? He said, not yet. Then I grew a beard, this kind of funny beard. And I'm wearing a kapata. So then I looked like a Lubavitcher. And so I went to Reb Ruvain. I had turned 40. And I said, I think maybe it's a good idea for me to wear a Hamburg, but the Rosh Shiva told me then not to wear a Hamburg, so I don't want to put, he says, no, now put on a Hamburg. So at 40, I put on a Hamburg. But anyway, I'm a little older than 40 now, but there's a lot of good things in Lubavitch. I read one of the biographies on the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and there's a story there that really, really got to me. There's a story there that there was a school, Nebuch, that was attacked. Was it Maimonides? I think it was Maimonides in Eretz Yisrael. Was that the name of the school? I don't remember. It was attacked. They took hostages, and they killed 17 students. I think it was Maimonides. Way back, yeah. Not before you were born, though. But anyway, the Lubavitcher Rebbe sent them a letter that he's asking if they could check the mezuzahs in the school. And they did. And they found 17 pasul mezuzahs. It was really amazing. And at that time, he started a worldwide campaign on mezuzah recognition. Now, I'm going to tell you a drill that really works. It's going to take, I know everybody here is very busy. I know. It's going to take 10 seconds of your day. But it's 10 seconds that really makes a difference. One time during the day, put your hand on a mezuzah. It could be the mezuzah in the master bedroom. It could be the mezuzah in your kitchen, because some people have an affinity to the kitchen. If you have an attachment to the kitchen, you might want to do it on the kitchen. I'm sorry, but that reminds me, when I went to be Menachem Avel, when I see Mati, I start rambling. I can't help it. But anyway, when I went to be Menachem Avel, Rebbitzin Miller, so she was talking to me about Rav Miller. She said Rav Miller did not open the refrigerator for 65 years. Can you imagine that? I can't do it for 65 minutes. For 65 years, she served him whatever. Oh, she served him. But he didn't go to take a drink, to take, a dessert, a pear. He didn't open the... but anyway, maybe you're not that way. Maybe you have connection to the kitchen, I do. I'm connected to... But anyway, go to any mezuzah and put your hand on the mezuzah for 10 seconds. Keep it there. And think that Hashem is in the room and He's looking at me. A simple training. It'll change your mezuzah focus. I want to tell you something. Again, I don't know if anybody in the room has this now. There was a time that I don't even have it. I have these pens. These are very good pens for writing Chidushei Torah. These are, but there used to be a time that everybody carried a Parker pen. Everybody. And did it say Parker? You saw by that emblem, there was an arrow emblem, you knew it was a Parker. And there are still people that they see a certain emblem on the car, they know it's a Cadillac. And there's an emblem, they know it's a Lexus. And they know it's, that other car with the B, they know. You wouldn't get some people to drive a German car. I mean, that's not the topic, but I'm just saying, I remember I had my shver by me. The Nazis killed his first wife and daughter. My father was in Auschwitz, and on the first day of Shavuos, they gassed his father, mother, 4 brothers and sisters. But when my shver was in my house, he lived in my house for 2 years, my first wife, Miriam Liba, the Nazis killed his first wife and daughter, so he was living by me, and I had a cheap clock on one of the hallway walls, and I see him looking, and he's looking. I said, "How fascinated could he be about this clock? I think I got it in a dollar store or somewhere." He's looking, and then I saw it said "Made in Germany." I had no idea. I went ahead, ripped it off the wall, threw it in the garbage right away. There was nothing to talk about. You go to people that went through Germany. There has to be a reason why I rambled about this. So I'm gonna. Yeah, this time, 5 p.m. right? 5 p.m. Okay. I just want to tell you, I mentioned it, so I'm going to give you a gift. I'm going to tell you a story about my first shver. Baruch Hashem, now I have a second shver. I never thought I'd have a second shver. He should live and be well. And he also was a graduate of Bergen-Belsen. He's still alive. And he was 3 when his mother took him, 3 other siblings, and an alta mother out of Bergen-Belsen. There's miracles. His father, the Nazi shot. But anyway, I want to tell you a story about my shver, Reb Aaron ben Reb Moshe Gelbtach, because it's. Mati, do you remember him? It's worth coming just to hear this story. Forget about everything. No, don't forget everything, guys. But it's worth coming to hear this story. My shver had a chocolate factory in Lemberg. He was successful in chocolate factory. The Nazis came in and they knocked on the factory. They came in, they asked him for the keys, and they threw him out. They took over His wife was a Chassidish girl, who, in those days, cultured people played piano. Not for public, just for themselves. And his wife was renowned as a maestro. She just, some people, their fingers, they hear music, they compose music. There's just some people with incredible gifts. She was incredibly gifted. She wasn't even trained. Anyway, unfortunately, the Nazis found out about it. So one night, a bang on the door, is this Gestapo agent, with full Gestapo, I think it was a major. It says, come, she's going to play in the bar. A bar full of drunken Germans. So my Schwer goes, they have a 3-year-old daughter. I think her name was Gittel. And what are you going to do? You can't get a babysitter at the last minute. He scoops her up out of the crib, and they go to the bar. Now, she read sheet music, so they put a German song in front of her. She played, and she played magnificent. Everybody got up and gave her a standing ovation, a bunch of Nazis. The major got so angry that they're giving such applause to a Yid, he took out a gun and shot her in the face. My Schwer said her whole face disintegrated. And he wasn't finished yet. He was so angry, he took my Schwer said, a gun mit a messer. That's a bayonet. He took the bayonet, rammed it through the little girl's chest, and killed her. And then sent my Schwer home. My Schwer survives the war, comes to America, and dates another war widow. He was 51, she was 51, 52. And he was ready to marry her. But he was a big Kapizhnitzer chassid, and he went for a bracha to the Kapizhnitzer Rebbe. Kapizhnitzer Rebbe says, how old is she? 52, can't marry her. Can't marry her. You have to rebuild your family. He said, but Rebbe, she's a war widow. What am I going to tell her? You can't marry her. You have to rebuild your family. He married my Schwiger, who was 17 years younger than him. When he was 59, he had my wife, my first Rebbetzin. He had, before that, 2 other daughters. He now has over 100 Yotzei Chalotzei. Easy. Probably more. If he wouldn't have had a Rebbe or a Rav, he would have died without anything. That's the reason people have to have somebody to listen to. It's a tremendous lesson. It's a tremendous lesson. And I know my Rebbetzin Aleh Shalom, she had that chinuch. You ask. You ask. I remember, boy, this is getting off the top. Huh? Well, no, not yet. You could ask questions after I leave. As a matter of fact, you could ask Mati the questions. Then he'll forget it anyway. But anyway, just don't ask him about pickleball. When I was dating my wife, so her father and her mother were both sick. He had a very severe heart condition, and she had ovarian cancer, my Schwiger. And my wife was dating me, and she says, I think I want to marry you, but I got a problem. I'm the Mezinical. How do I leave 2 sick parents? So I said, that's a good question. Ramosha was already ill. So I said, you know what, we'll go and ask a gadol. So I made an appointment with Rapam, and we went to ask Rapam. So we go to Rapam's house, and Rapam says in his sweet way that he'll speak to my wife first. He didn't know what it was about. So he speaks stuff for 15 minutes, and I'm like going nuts, you know. She comes down, and she said, he told me to tell you it looks good. And so so I went upstairs, and he said, you know, I told the young lady that her parents won't be losing a daughter, they'll be gaining a son. That's what he said. And it's true, because I ended up taking them to the hospitals, and I ended up taking them to the doctors. But my wife grew up knowing you ask a gadol. It's a very big thing. But I want to get back. You shouldn't feel cheated. You know, we were talking about davening, and you'll say, he's a crazy storyteller from Lakewood. You know, I don't want that to happen. You know, I'm still trying to get them to invite me to BRS, to be a scholar in residence for Shabbos. This is the second time they only put me up in the afternoon. You know, they hid me in a side room. But the Lamai said, Bob, you have work to do. I mean, this is. You know, you have to show your clout over here, you know. If you really need muscle, talk to Mati, you know. But I'm going to tell you what Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said. It's a really, really interesting thing. Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach asked, can it count as the 100 brachas if you say it without Kavana? The 100 brachas is a very big thing. It says that David HaMelech, they told him that there was 100 casualties every day, and he instituted the 100 brachas, and people stopped dying. So that it's a very, very big skula. As a matter of fact, Mogain David, Mogain is Gematria 93, six-sided star makes it 99, and the center of the star makes it 100. That's the 100 brachas. It's a big protection. So Rav Shlomo Zalman, Zecher Tzadik Kodesh Baruch Hu says, do you get that protection if you go, you get, like that, do you get the Meir brachas? He brings a fantastic answer. We all know that if you don't have Kavana in the first bracha of Shemona Esrei, you have to say over Shemona Esrei. But we don't, because we won't have Kavana the second time either. Right? So we don't do it. They used to say about Rav Moshe's Edom, Rav Shiskel, Zecher Tzadik Kodesh Bracha, that if Rav Shiskel didn't have Kavana, he would be able to say over Shemona Esrei. That's what he used to say about Rav Shiskel. But Lamaisa is, the Bir Alocha asks a bumba. Let's use Mati as an example. When he was saying Magen Avram, he was thinking about the Super Bowl. He gets up to Mechalkel Chaim and he says, I can't believe it. I didn't have Kavana. How is he allowed to say the rest of Shemona Esrei? You're right, you don't say over, but he's not Yoytze to Shemona Esrei. If you're not Yoytze, how can you say Shemona Esrei? It's a bracha levatala. It's such a good kasha. But he never thought of it. Not that it never happened. He never thought of it. It's such a good kasha. You know how many times it happened to me that I went through Magen Avram and when I bent down, I said, says the Mishnah Berurah in the Bi Halacha, Vais de Chais, although we're not fulfilling Shemona Esrei the way it's supposed to be, it's still not a bracha levatol. And therefore, says Reb Shlomo Zalman, if it's not a bracha levatol, it counts as 100 mitzvahs, as 100 brachas. Even though if you don't have, the Reb Shlomo Zalman brings a raya from this Bir Halach. But, and this is the reason why I brought it up, not just because it's very fascinating, but he says, the Bir Halacha says, that if you went, let's say you got up to Rafa'enu, Now you're having aches and pains, so Rifa'enu you start having Kavana. And you realize that till Rifa'enu you didn't have an ounce of Kavana. An ounce? A shred! You weren't even thinking about anything else. You spaced out. You let your mouth do the walking for you. Says the Chafetz Chaim, you should mentally go back and think about all the brachas until Rifa'enu. Magen Avram, it was a shield of Avram from the Kibshan Eish, Mechaya Mason, that I believe in the resurrection. Baruch Hashem HaKel HaKadosh, when I get to the next world, we're going to enjoy the Shechina. Baruch Hashem Chayin Adas, that I could think, I have cognitive abilities, right? And go through the brachas mentally till Rifa'enu and only then continue. Believe me, if you have to do this a few times, you'll make sure not to forget. It's a job, especially if you start waking up at Sim Shalom. But it's a job to go back and go through them mentally, even if you just go through the finales. And, if as a Rav, if I have to do this, people say, oh, the Rav is having such a long Shemana Esrei. By the way, it's not, people say, yeah, the Rav, he doesn't daven the same length of Shemana Esrei. Of course not. Today, 3 people told him terrible stories about being sick. His Shemana Esrei should be longer that day. He just witnessed such a terrible Shalom Bayis situation. His Sim Shalom that day should be longer. I can't stand. I understand people like you that have to get the express bus at a certain time and have to get to work right away. But I'm talking about people that the only thing that they're really concerned about is when tea time is, or when you have to get to the pickleball court or the tennis court. Do we need to have that we're going to get up to Baruch in 15 minutes, and then another 7 minutes to Shemana Esrei, and then another 3 minutes for Chazaras HaShas? Can I ask you something? Do you think that maybe that goes under the heading of Al Tas Tfilascha Keva? Isn't that pure Al Tas Tfilascha Keva? I never allowed it in my shul. I don't allow it in fairways, in my Agudah in fairways. I said, what are you doing? Now, of course, if you have to make the Zman Kriya Shema, that's different. Okay? It's a Daraisa, you have to make a Zman Kriya Shema, then you have to have a Cheshbon. But after you make the Zman Kriya Shema, it shouldn't be how much time it takes to get to Muzav. Did you ever see a card by a Kiddush, you only have 4 minutes to eat the cholent? Or did you ever see a placard outside of the shul, you could only talk outside for 4.5 minutes? It's really something to think about. There are times where our davening should be longer. You know what's the Yom of Shabbos? The Yom of Shabbos is Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos Toiv L'Hodos L'Hashem. Shabbos is good to thank Hashem. During the week, we're fayukt. It's amazing how people could be busy even with nothing to do. It's amazing. But it's an amazing thing. But, is that a buzzer? Some shuls, they have like a bell that rings, like, don't worry, I'm watching. I have 15 seconds left, don't worry. May be the will of Hashem that when we daven, the first thing is we should focus with talking to somebody. We should learn what the words mean. We don't want it to be that we get to Shemayim and Hashem says, Mishmeir, You said to me in Shemona Esrei, Aseh l'man shemecha, Aseh l'man yiminecha. Do it for the sake of your name. Do it for the sake of your might. Could you tell me do what? Banisham, do what you want. No, but when you said do it, what did you mean? Do good things. It means to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. And it's Aseh l'man shemecha, because you know what they say when that golden tumah is on top of your Arabayas? You know what they say about your might? You know what they say about your holiness, that such a thing could happen? We need to learn our davening. We don't want to be embarrassed when Hashem asks us after 120. And we don't want to... I have an uncle. When I was 8 years old, he told me something. In those days, I was still called Marky because my father was afraid to give me a Hebrew name on my birth certificate. He was still afraid of the Nazis in America. And my uncle said, Mark, I'll never forget, he told me this in the Nitra shul on Friday night. He said, let me tell you something. You're going to be davening all your life, whether you like it or not. You might as well make it good. It's such a genius of an idea. We daven anyway. I mean, if we weren't davening, then we could debate it. But we're davening anyway. If we're davening anyway, we might as well make it good. And the schus of us talking about davening, Hashem should be mamale kol mishal yiseinu l'teva.